Hi everybody, it's Christy here, owner and director at Bioscan. I'm so glad that you've taken the opportunity to have a body composition scan. It really is amazing information that you simply can't get from standing on the scales or looking in the mirror alone. So today, this video is a detailed scan feedback video. So it's going to go for about 10 minutes and it's really for those who've had their first scan or who are wanting a much more detailed feedback so that you understand all of the information on your printout. So if you've got in front of you your blue interpretation guide and also a copy of your scan, I'm going to go through each of the sections one by one, down the left and down the right, briefly explaining what they are. So let's actually start with your body composition analysis at the top. So this is literally telling you how much of each substance you have in your body. Now, with body water, you should always be sitting at around between 60 to 70% of your total weight as water. So what this means is if you are heavier than normal, if you are a heavier person, either through body muscle or through body fat or both, you're going to have more water. If you're a smaller person, you're going to have less water, but it should be sort of around 65% of your total weight. So if your total water is over, it's not a problem, and it would be due to the fact that you've got higher than average muscle or higher than average body fat. Now, the bracketed numbers underneath are the suggested or the average range that you might be between for a female or male of your height. Now, the protein is actually protein in the cells. It consists of nitrogen as well, and it's strongly related with soft, lean muscle mass. So generally, if your protein is high, you would have a high skeletal muscle mass, and if it's low, it's likely that you have a lower muscle mass. So quite often people who are very fit or who are very muscular will actually have their protein in kilograms outside of the brackets, which is totally fine. Now, the same with the minerals. The machine actually measures osseous and non-osseous minerals. Osseous minerals are the ones that are in your bones, and non-osseous minerals are other minerals throughout your system. So in total kilograms of minerals, again, if you are a very active, strong person or you've got higher than average muscle mass, it's likely that your minerals will be at least to the upper level or over. Again, it's quite normal and quite common, and it also really means that you've probably got a strong body. Typically, high protein and high minerals, or low protein and low minerals, go together. So the body fat mass brackets and your body fat mass in kilograms is given. So again, you can see sort of where you fit in regards to that bracketed suggestion in regards to your height. So this is actually sort of giving you an idea about your fat mass index, or how much fat is suggested is healthy for you based on your height, irrespective of your muscle mass. Now you can read across, if you add up protein and water, it equals your soft lean mass. If you add on the minerals as well, it gives you your fat-free mass, and then if you add on the fat, it gives you your total weight, and at each stage, the bracketed suggestions are given. But again, if you are a heavy person, it's likely that you'll be over at least on the soft lean and the fat-free. Now, the second section, the muscle to fat analysis. This is where we're looking at the balance of how much fat to muscle do you have. Do you have more fat? Do you have more muscle? Or do you have the same? So if you have a look down here, you can see the green section which follows sort of down, and 100% is in the middle of all of here. Now this can be classed as adequate, average, normal, something like that. And again, there's a range because not everyone is exactly the same. Now, you can see if your weight is within the normal category or over. Now, someone, for example, who is a bodybuilder or who has a lot of muscle mass is going to have their weight over. It's not necessarily a bad thing because it depends on when we look at your composition in more detail. Skeletal muscle mass. Now, I like to say that, you know, above 100% is really where you should be aiming. Anywhere between 90 and 100% is considered average or normal. A lot of people are over, but really what we don't want is for your muscle mass to be lower than the green section, so below the 90%. that would be indicating that you have inadequate muscle and that your body is not strong. And really, strong is where healthy comes from, and it ensures that we're strong throughout our lifespan. So if you aim for 100% or over, then that's a really good spot to be. Body fat mass. So again, anywhere between 80 to 160% is considered normal, where 100% is in the middle. So that bar is actually stretched out further on the upper side there. So for females, ideally you don't want to be too much below 80%. However, if you are into something like body building or competitive fitness, it's likely that you might be. So ideally the fat would not be above 160%, because what that's saying is for a gender of your gender and your height, it would be ideal if your fat was within that section rather than being over. Now, if you look at the balance or the shape of these three measures and you turn to page 4 of your booklet, you'll see that yours makes one of 3 patterns. And there are variations of these, but this is just a quick example. So the C shape, which is where the muscle mass is the shorter of the 3 bars, is either of 2 kind of situations. If everything is really low, it could mean that you've got inadequate muscle mass and a normal amount of fat. If all of the bars are really high, it can indicate that you've got a good or more than average amount of muscle mass. However, your body fat is even more than that. So in either situation, on a percentage scale, there's more fat than muscle. That's the least ideal situation. It's when a flip around of that, or at least balancing them out, would have the body in a better composition or a better state of balance, really. So the intervention for this one would be to increase muscle if it's below 100%, and or to decrease body fat to bring it within the green section. So the I shape means that everything's sort of balanced. And again, it can be a low I, where the values are low, or a high I. So it's when the muscle and the fat are in equal kind of proportions to one another. And this is a fairly average body type, so it's not good or it's not bad. A lot of people fall here. It's not particularly athletic. However, everything is in reasonable balance. The D shape is when the muscle mass is the longest of the 3 bars. And again, it can be a low D, or everything can be up the upper end. So you can have a look in more detail there. So no real intervention required here apart from your own personal goals. It would be to maintain your muscle mass and to perhaps tweak slightly your body fat if you're after that. But generally, if you've got the D shape, things are looking pretty good. So that's a quick reference point there. Okay, if you go to the next section, the calculated analysis, these are 2 calculated values which can give you some information. Now, body mass index is a somewhat outdated value, and if you are very small or if you have a very large body with a lot of muscle mass, then it's sort of going to give you a bit of an inaccurate or a misleading value to say that you're under or over. It does work quite well for average body types, but we really don't focus on it a lot. Sometimes the medical profession still does. Percentage body fat is the percentage of your entire weight that is fat. Ideally for women, between 18 and 28%, or around 30%, and for men between about 10 and 20%. Women just hold more fat than men. Now, the thing is with percentage body fat is it's not actually the best way to compare between scans. Looking at your total fat mass, and later on I'll go through the fat breakdown, is actually a better way to do it. Your percentage body fat is your fat divided by your total weight. Now, your total weight depends on many other factors. For example, how much water you've currently got in your system, and also your current muscle mass. So if between scans your muscle mass is changing, then your percentage body fat will change even if the amount of fat has not gone up or down. So if you happen to increase your muscle mass, you're heavier, therefore your percentage body fat will go down even if your fat's not changed. If your muscle mass has gone down, your percentage body fat will increase even though you haven't changed your fat. So you really do need to be comparing your body fat mass and the fat breakdown. to be comparing your scores. And also, you cannot compare yourself. Let's say if you're 25% body fat and you have a friend who's 25% body fat, especially if they're a different gender to you, you really can't compare unless you happen to be exactly the same weight and you've got the same muscle mass, because those are other factors that can change what that percentage body fat looks like. All right, the next section, segmental lean analysis. So this large section here is looking at the muscle breakdown per body part. Now, trunk is everything that is not your arms and your legs, so it's somewhere between your bottom and up into your shoulders, back and front. Now, ideally, both sets of bars would be above 100%. So if you imagine that 100% is adequate muscle, however, anywhere between that 80 or 90 in that green section is considered adequate, but really I like to work on a value of 100% plus. Now, the top bar is based on your ideal weight for your height and gender. So, and that value is given in kilograms. The bottom bar is based on your current weight. So for your current weight, which may be average, heavier than average, or lighter than average, what is your relative muscle mass looking like? So again, you would have all of your percentages above 100, and you can also look for balance left and right arm and left and right leg. Now, a couple of percent difference is pretty standard with most people. However, if it's looking like 6% difference on those bottom bars or more, that does indicate that there's an imbalance in muscle mass on that limb, and it's worth looking into in regards to training. If you've had an injury, it's likely that it's showing up. Imbalances in the arms are less of a problem than imbalances in the legs. For example, if you're a tennis player or if you're a masseuse, you may very well have an imbalance. However, with your legs, it's more important that they're the same. So it can mean that you might need to look at balancing them out with some one-sided exercises, or making sure that you're working in a very symmetrical way. Now, here you can also see, for example, on this scan, the muscle is fairly evenly distributed top and bottom, with slightly more on the legs. A lot of guys sometimes will have more muscle mass at the top. A lot of females are even, or sometimes have more muscle mass on the bottom. There's no right or wrong, it's just your genetics, the activity you do, and how your body shape is naturally.